G'day golfers. Ever found yourself redirecting blame and making excuses after having an absolute shocker on a golf course? I know that I have. Range was closed, I was a little cold, didn't warm up, I hit it in those 3 old divots. Then we have the podcast for you. We focus on how to fundamentally own your swing. Strike it pure and consistently shoot in the 70s. Be it if you're a weekend hack, retired and playing daily, a school phenom or a tour professional. We present and discuss facts and physics pertaining to golf, trying to keep our ego and opinion at bay. We dispel myths such as keep your head down, bend your knees, or my all-time favourite, game improvement irons. So stop drinking that mythical Kool-Aid and have a sip of ours. I think you'll find it both inspiring and refreshing. I'm Scott Young, founder of Swing, PGA professional and ex-tour player. Welcome to Pivot the Path. G'day golfers and welcome to Pivot the Path. What a week we've got. New York US Open week, or 2 weeks, as we get into the round of 16 and into the quarters, semis and finals. I hope that you're enjoying your US Open as much as we do. We are about a block from the Intercon where most of the players, and there's about 7 hotels around us. We have players galore. And as a tennis nut, I just love it. I love watching it. I love everything about Grand Slam tennis. So we're going to draw upon that with our little improvement pivot point about commitment and what we're learning watching tennis players. We had young Francisco and his partner Lucas in here. They got to the third round of the doubles, men's doubles. Unfortunately, they bowed out there. They're on to the Davis Cup. I think Francisco's going to play Davis Cup in Peru for Portugal. They got a driver and a couple of 3-woods from us. So we got them into very stiff X-flexes, and we explained that speed when you're fitting clubs is just a bullshit kind of marketing ploy. It's actually how you load the club. As you're going up into a tennis serve, there's very similar parallels. So if you can serve at 120 miles an hour, we know we can load that golf club. So Francisco, who's just started playing golf, I think only a year or 2 into it. Mate, keep going. And we look forward to seeing you boys in Australia for the Aussie Open there. So they were in and they were cool. Well, what a week we draw upon. We wanted just to start this a little differently today because the US Open for us, because we're in this community of all these tennis players, is very real. And the draw and parallel we get from the US Open is pretty full on. And I wanted to just talk about 2 specific occurrences that we saw at the US Open last week as club champs come around, and certainly for the Northeast, we have club champs. And I just wanted to throw this out there to you that you can draw upon lots of things so you can own your swing. So young Coco Gauff, who bowed out over the weekend to Osaka, who just was outclassed. But I wanted to talk about it in a very positive light. So here's a young 21, 22-year-old Grand Slam winner who 6 days before the Open changes her coaching staff and invites a biomechanics expert to talk about her tennis serve. And without getting into too much detail, as I want to stick to my lane here, I'm probably one of the leading biomechanics guys in the golf industry. And unfortunately in golf, biomechanics hasn't caught up yet. It will. I know we're kind of a decade ahead of ourselves here, but the industry will catch up. But what I took from Coco, and we've got some video on that, is that Coco was certainly too square to the tennis court. She had her weight too far forward. And if you look at the biomechanics of using ground force and explosion and posterior tilt, and we want to peak at the point of strike above her head, because she wasn't moving backwards, she couldn't come forwards, and her ball toss was too far forward, and basically she'd serve everything into the net. Now, 6 days before a Grand Slam, it takes some balls to say, hey, I need to change because I will implode in the coming week. And then to expect a brilliant athlete to peak at a Grand Slam, remember there's only 4, is nothing short of gutsy. And I just wanted to shout out to Coco and her team the way she handled herself. And that 3rd round event where she played Donna Vikic, where she won, was probably, for me personally, very close to home, how the peaks and troughs I felt when I was back on tour. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit to say, hey, when everyone slams Coco for not playing too well, just remember that she's a professional athlete putting food on the table. So she's doing a great job. To have the balls and guts to say, hey, my tennis serve needs to be overhauled 6 days before a Grand Slam, not great timing, but I gather she looked in the mirror and said, hey, the current state of how I serve is not simply going to be good enough to get through, second round, third round, quarters, etc. And that first set against Donna it was appalling. They both weren't playing well. But the point of having this conversation is the manner in which Coco stepped up to the second set. We saw her in tears on the tennis court. It's obviously very emotional. I find tennis to be almost worse than golf in the media are now basically controlling the event. They interview the players before they come out. They interview the leading player as they straight after they win. Then they're in the press conference. I feel really sorry for the players. They're almost losing their ability to control their environment before a match. I think the interview before they step out is terrible. I think the players should be able to do what they want to do, because if I'm a tennis player and I'm not very sociable, I should have the right to actually just get in my bubble to protect me against that, media circus before the event. After the event, if I win, I love the on-court interview. I think it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But I just think there needs to be a little bit of a ceiling of how much the media can get involved there. So here we've got a young 20-year-old, 21 or whatever Coco is, and she's practicing in front of the media. She's learning a new skill in front of the media. I remember Nick Faldo said to me once, years ago, the problem with golfers is they don't understand how bad they play. And he said this, he said, golfers are subconsciously incompetent at the golf skill. The hard part about learning a new skill is become consciously competent. So you actually have to think about it. So for Coco, she's got to rock back on that back leg. She's got to rotate her shoulders a little bit more to the right-hand side of where she's trying to serve. She's got to get the ball toss above her head. Now that's a conscious effort when you're learning a new skill. And the really difficult part is to become subconsciously competent. So Faldo said there's 3 points to bring on a new skill. You are bringing a skill on because you are subconsciously incompetent. You can't perform a skill. You've got to be consciously competent. And then the really hard part, as I said, is to become subconsciously competent. And that's what I absolutely believe in. And the parallels between Coco, be it Coco on a far more pressurized platform, it's what we do here at Swing every day, in that most people come to us because they're subconsciously incompetent. They can't perform a fade or a draw or a low shot. We've got a chap, one of our guys who I played with on Friday at Madison. I ducked away very quickly and played with 2 of our guys and Maddie, our doctor of PT, because Maddie and I felt it was very important that the 2 guys have invested in us so much time. They do group training, they get trained by Maddie, they get trained by me, and we wanted to see how they play on a golf course. And then PB got to the finals of his club champs. He made it all square after 18 and lost on the first playoff hole because together the 4 of us had created systems on that Friday. So club champs, PB knew exactly what to do. So what we know is that golfers are generally poor at certain skills. And my wife and I built this entire platform is to create the ability for everyone to have structure, to get them to scratch or thereabouts, to own their swing, to shoot their age. And that's what Swing's about. We're a vertically integrated brand, from clubs to short game to alignment gear to everything we could possibly do to allow you guys to own your swing. And the way and bringing it back to the US Open, the way Coco Gauff owned her swing after that first set, which was nothing short of appalling. She was serving it in her service box. She was serving it outside the baseline. Her serve imploded, but she reeled it in. She had a break, went to the restroom, and I presume, thought, what the hell am I doing? Get your act together, and relied on the fact that she's brilliant. And I am so proud to watch that young lady go from implosion to winning. Obviously, she didn't get get past the round of 16, but it's not about that. It's the fact that she can rely on her mental tenacity. And I thought that game, while she didn't win, was absolutely spectacular. And it reminds me of like one Tommy Fleetwood, who's leading into the back nine of the tour event and doesn't get it done, 3-4 weeks, 3 out of 4 weeks, and eventually wins the FedEx Play-Up. Why? Because he can rely on being resilient and he can rely on being committed. And so I just thought, Coco, as you have hopefully some time off now, you can really work on your game. You can take longer to learn a skill, and you can take now some time getting it to be a subconscious thought. Another parallel I had in round 3 of the tennis, and this was really interesting. We were watching this and the place was packed. We're hitting balls. And we had Teofel, the American chap, playing Struff, the young German. And Struff, who had 27 aces in the tournament, was the leading ace holder of the US Open up until the third round there. He was 2 sets to up, 5-3 up, and he was serving for the match. Now, this is the epitome of own your swing. Here's a guy who's a strapping lad. I think he's 6'7". He's playing the best. He's 34, so he's no spring chicken. And he was having the best Grand Slam of his tournament life. Okay? He's 2 sets up. He's 5-3 up, serving for the match. And up until that service game, he had 7 or 8 aces that game. He'd had 27 tournament to date leading male tennis player with aces. And then all of a sudden he got out of his routine. And then all of a sudden he got out of, and one can only presume, because I've obviously never met this man, he got out of process, and he presumably started thinking outcome, and suddenly he had 3 double faults. Now he went from serving for the match in straight sets, and then all of a sudden they're playing a tiebreaker and he's about to lose the set. The point is, when you get out of your process and when you start focusing on results, I've got the club champs. I'm going to win this. I've never won a club champs. How good's that going to be? I can tell everyone I won the club champs. Slow your roll. Get back to Coco Gauff. And sorry, just to finish on that, Mr. Struff won. He went on to win. He bowed out the next set. But the point is, as a 34, 35-year-old, he proved to himself he can play some great tennis up until he got out of his process. And getting back to Coco Gauff, when she went to that restaurant break, I presume they're not allowed to speak to anyone but, and I presume the ATP are really strict on that. But one would imagine that she drew upon all of her Grand Slam wins of the past and said, hang on, girl, you've got this. I've got the process, and I've got the process to get me to win this event. I just have to get going on my serve and actually get the ball in, and history shows that she won that event. So bringing this back to our brand, what is Swing? We're a brand of excellence, determination, commitment, and process. And so what we would like to do is control the process for all the golfers, and we create structure. So instead of buying an $850 putter, maybe work on how to align yourself. Maybe work on your pre-shot routine. See how your eyes perceive alignment. And so Swing is a brand that really is focused on the process and the structure of owning your swing. We are in a dopamine-filled environment where you look at Instagram and get your 30 seconds. You look at TikTok and get your 6 seconds. Swing's not a brand of instant a dopamine hit. Swing's a brand of taking stock, being committed to the process, and controlling the process so you ultimately control the improvement that you can and own your swing of your golf game. And I think that's really, really important. In society, we're in such a quick fix, dopamine fix. Swing's not like that. We're one of the very few brands that really take a look at the vertical integration of how you're controlling and owning your golf swing and creating processes for that. So our improvement pivot point is to absolutely create a commitment to improving your game. So as the Northeast starts to get a little cold, I mean, we're now in sweater weather here. It was probably down to 50 today. We're back into group training after the Labor Day weekend. So we're saying, right, here we go. Let's hit the ground running. I've just dropped 17 pounds from being 206 to 188 back when I was first married. And it wasn't about a quick taking a pill or doing the quick fix. It was about taking a step back, creating structure of, right, This is what I have to eat. This is how much I have to work out. It is weight loss is input in versus output. And so it's creating structure to hit a goal. HSS had a study put out that for every pound overweight, we've got 5 pounds of pressure. So because I've lost close to 20 pounds, that's 100 pounds of pressure off my knees and ankles and hips and lower back. And I think things like that are really important. So what we're trying to do here, let's tie this back to our improvement pivot point, is that we're a brand that's committed for you guys. We want you guys to own your golf swing and to achieve your goals. And so for us, that looks like getting back to group training. For us, that looks like instead of buying that shiny new putter, actually just look at the process you have. Look at where your putter aligns. I played an awesome game of golf on Monday, on Labor Day, with Tilly and Colton. And we turned up to our little local 9-holer. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm probably not going to play every shot, or every hole, because I'm obviously got Colt's bag and Colt's running around like a blue-ass fly. But the commitment I had was I wanted to create process. So on the first hole, which is a little par 3, it's about 110 yards, I hit it to about 6 foot, made birdie. Because I wanted to say, right, for every time I do pull the trigger, and it was half to half for me with pitching wedge, I'm going to actually commit to it as if I'm playing a golf tournament. Before I hit off, I'd said to myself, look, I might only play 4 holes. And it's all about Tilly and Colt. But for the holes that I do play, I want to absolutely commit. And when we played at Madison on Friday with Maddie and Damo and PB, for the holes that I was playing, I wanted to commit on the shots that I wanted to play. And I can't tell you how much this comment comes out. We're walking down a par 4. There's water at the front of the green. It was about 310 yards. And the guy said, what are you hitting here? I said, I'm just going to hit it on the green. And they're like, yeah, but there's water on the left and there's gunge on the right. What I'm trying to get golfers to do is not label a golf shot. As Scotty Scheffler has shown to us, we have the ability to play from point A to point B. The same as Coco's serving from point A to point B. Instead of serving in front of us, she's got to serve above us. She's not quite there in that subconscious level yet. She's obviously got 4 months before the Aussie Open. And the amount of drives I hit, knocked it on basically 2 par 4s on Friday. And the guys were like, my God, that's an amazing shot. And I'm like, not really, not when you take out all the noise and you take out all the emotion. I'm not going to hit, I don't see the water and I don't see the gugunj on the right. I just see the ball flight. And I know that I can come from the inside, hit a little draw, or on one stage it was coming a little outside in, hitting a little fade. And I'm going to control ball flight because I'm only going from point A to point B. And that's what golf's about, is that the more we dive into this, and I do draw on a lot from watching outside sport, is that our outside sport allows us to understand that we're trying to achieve the same goals just on a lesser field. So as we move into news from the fairways, we just wanted to tie back on, hey, we're going to grab from the F1. Oscar Piastri wins the Dutch F1 right where he left off. What? With good process, right? He's now winning the F1 championship. I hope he wins his first as an Aussie. Aussie hasn't won it for a while. I can't remember the last time, if we've ever had an F1 world champ. The LPGA, we had Miranda Wang won her first LPGA event, rookie. First year out on the LPGA. Now, she's not uncommon to pressure. She got Duke to win the NCAA in 2019. So, Miranda, you've had your first LPGA win. You're going to be on to bigger and better things. South African, Thurston Lawrence won the DP event. He's won a couple of times. But again, we get back to the point of commitment and owning your golf swing. So he's leading by 1 or 2 into the 4th round, starts bogey, bogey, bogey. He then eagles the 6 and then has 5 more birdies to win the event. Point is, pressure is an interesting thing, and it grabs us and engulfs us, whether it's business, whether it's day-to-day, whether it's family. But these great athletes allow us to understand that even at the great level, pressure's there. But with Thurston at the DP, eagle, and then 5 birdies to win that event. I just think that's absolutely phenomenal. So happy for you and your team there, bud. It gets back to commitment. So getting this all back to our improvement pivot point. We're not going to hit some, we're not going to chip today. And I think this is really, really important. The amount of times I'm playing with golfers and they're saying, this is the hardest hole, or I've got my club champs. It doesn't matter, guys. Our job is to perform a routine going from point A to point B. On Friday, I closed here at like 8:30, hopped on the train, and Damo said, oh, mate, why don't you come up to Madison, which is about 2 hours north of the city, and stay the night, and we hit off at 7:40 first. We were second group out. And I thought, oh, no, I'll go home and drive up in the morning. And Damo's like, nah, buddy, come and stay. So in old Scott world, when I was on tour, I wouldn't have been able to kind of manage that expectation of, I'm not staying in my bed, I'm not having my, the way I warm up. Looking back on tour, I was so preoccupied with having this perfect build-up, I forgot to rely on my process of the day. And so the train pulled up into Westport, the doors open, Rosie threw me the overnight bag and the clothes. I threw her some garbage from swing that day, and doors shut, and off I go up to Madison, another hour on the train, hop out, jump in an Uber. Damo left the door open for me, and it's midnight, we're up at 6 a.m. And the point is, as long as you can accept that there's going to be bumps in the road, right? Coco accepted that, hey, I'm not going to serve the greatest of the US Open, but I'll do the best that I can. And it's a matter of bringing it back to get the ball from point A to point B. It doesn't matter whether it's archery or tennis or Oscar in his F1 McLaren. Once we understand that we can only control what we can control, which is our process, then the rest of the noise disappear. So up at Madison, ripped the first, missed the first green, hit a great little chip, and then I was on my way, right? And it's just about focusing on what you can focus on, which is process, process, process. We come back to this week. What can you control is that now Labor Day's gone in the Northeast here. We're getting straight back on the group training bandwagon. Why? Because we know that use it or lose it is a principle in science that absolutely does apply to every one of us. So come Monday, we're back on the horse here. We're going to give all our golfers this week off as they get back into work. Obviously, a lot of them have this week off. Come Monday, 6:30, we're back at group training. Why? Because it is so important to own your swing and own your body. Whether your goal is to lose some lbs, whether your goal is to improve your hip mobility, whether your goal is to improve your thoracic mobility, it absolutely allows you to own your swing. And so we're a brand about not trying to put up with the bullshit of, oh, I didn't putt well because. No, you didn't putt well because you didn't understand your process. You didn't play well in the club champs because you didn't control your process. Our job is to own your swing on the golf course. And it's so important for a brand to understand who we are and how we do that. We're going to give all of us a bit of a kick up the butt this week, right? So look at these ATP players coming up. If you look at Alcaraz, I mean, that guy is an absolute magician. But he's a magician because he owns his process. Djokovic, he's a magician who's still going at this point in the podcast. He's still going at 39, I think maybe he's 40, because he owns the process. And so what we know is that we've got to control the body, group training, and actually work out. After this podcast, 7 a.m., I'm smashing that 3Ks on a rower, and I'm working on my stability. Why? Because I've got to look after my joints because I'm hypermobile. I've got to make sure that I'd still do my pre-shot routine and post-shot routine work, and I'm looking at my mental application. So when I played with Colt and Tilly, even though I didn't play every hole of the 9 holes, for the shots that I produced, I wanted to be 100% committed on that. And I've got a percentage on how we can mathematically do that. And as long as I shoot over 80% mental, I'll shoot under par most times. From the golf swing point of view, I actually hit a couple of shots where I was a little on top of it on Friday at Madison. So today I'm going to get back being what I call underneath it and hitting that little high draw. I hit a little bit too many faded cutters, which I wasn't happy about. So body mechanics, mind mechanics, pre-shot routine, and obviously own your swing with your body work. So make sure you're working on your stability and mobility. And you will absolutely own your swing. Body, mind, and mechanics. And those three things, when they come together, you'll absolutely own your swing. It doesn't matter what the event is. Beauty golfers, look, thanks for listening. And remember, you'll absolutely own your swing with the work you put into your game off the golf course. Remember, share the newsletter, drops Fridays. Please share this podcast because we think it's just a little different take on the world sport, what's happening in golf, and how to absolutely own your swing in the golf industry. We'll see you next week. Cheers.